This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by the Fire Store. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting thefirestore.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. My name is Aaron Zamzow. I'm a fire officer up in Wisconsin, close to Canada, still in the US. I'm also a writer for Fire Rescue One, and I'm on my own today. I have no commander with me, which I normally do. So it's like mom and dad are away for the weekend and the kids are left home with a full tank of gas and some money for pizza. So with me in this fun little journey or episode today is a friend of mine now, Firefighter Philip Clark. And we've been talking behind the scenes just about his journey and where he's been. He's a 20-year veteran of the fire service and actually got to start working in the medical side in emergency medical services. He's currently serving as a firefighter with the city of Lenore in North Carolina. He's written some great pieces for us on Fire Rescue One. And through that writing, we've just started talking a little bit about his journey. And I think for all of you, I call us the misfits, by the way, Philip. We all are trying to get better every single day. And for some reason, I think we all think that we're misfits and we're a minority. I'm starting to believe we're changing that to the majority, which is kind of what we'll talk about a little bit today. But what I really want people to, why I want people to listen is that your journey is very similar to, I think, 70% of what the fire service is trying to do or needs to do. And, you've lost a tremendous amount of weight. You've been through some mental health challenges. You've been through some physical challenges. And all along the way, you just kept trudging forward and becoming a full-time firefighter now. And you're here, and I want to share your story. But first of all, welcome. How you doing, by the way, brother? Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm just having a great time so far in the chat that we had behind the scenes and really looking forward to having a great time.
Yeah, Janelle's already pissed off because a lot of the good material was behind the scenes again. So we'll try to bring it out in the episode. I want to start by just kind of give us a little background about, like, you started in EMS, I believe in Ohio. Take us from the beginning. You started in EMS. And, what kind of got you into that?
So I started as a volunteer firefighter and a first responder, an EMR, whatever you want to call it. And I actually started before that as what they called a cadet, or a junior firefighter, whatever you would call it, when I was still in high school. So my oldest brother, he's 10 years older than me. Buddy of his was on the volunteer fire department, convinced Alan to go down and join the fire department. And my neighbor growing up was our fire chief. As long as I can remember, I lived next door to the fire chief, and I would watch him. He had this, I think it was like a 1980 Mustang that he had a little teardrop light that he would stick on the roof.
Really?
Yeah. And man, when he finally sold that Mustang, it only had like 50,000 miles on it, but he would tell people that it was put the hardest quarter mile at a time, because we only lived about a quarter mile from the fire station. And boy, when the tones would go off, Sonny would tear out of that driveway. I mean, you just hope that nobody was coming, because I don't think he took his foot off the gas pedal from the minute he left the driveway to the minute he got to the fire station. But I got to talking with my neighbor, with the chief, and he said, we have a junior program. You should come down and see what it's like. And so I went down there and put in my paperwork and did all that stuff. And I got put on as a cadet. And I that was in December of 2002. And then the next 2 weeks, they didn't run a single call. not a single call for 2 whole weeks, which was like unheard of. And I was just thinking about this the other day. It was Christmas morning. We got our first call, and it was a medical call, of all things. It was a diabetic emergency. But I remember getting up. It had snowed the night before. There was like 8 or 9 inches of snow on the ground, and I trudged my way to the fire station. I jumped in our little rescue squad that we had, a pickup truck, and Sonny, my fire chief, was driving, and we went to this call. And I was hooked. I mean, as silly as it was looking back now, just a diabetic emergency, which was, the kind of call now that you kind of roll your eyes at, like, really, do I have to get out of bed for this? But at that moment, it was the most exciting thing I had ever done in my entire life. I was done. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And I just started taking steps, kind of like the way you eat an elephant, taking one bite at a time, and getting my certifications in and getting my training done. And so back there in Ohio, there's not a whole lot of, at the time, there was not a whole lot of paid departments that were close to where I lived. There was, I'd say, probably 3 or 4 that were within, a 20-minute drive or 30-minute drive of where I lived, but that was about it. And those departments, you had to know somebody
Right.
or
Family.
yeah. So I got into full-time EMS as like a kind of a placeholder. It was I'm going to work full-time EMS until I can get hired at one of these full-time departments. And then I blinked and it'd been 10, 15 years and I'd been doing it full-time. And well, I guess this is my life now.
Yeah.
And
You're
so
a paramedic as well, right? Like you got your
right,
paramedic
right.
license. Yep.
Yep.
So you're
So by that,
full-time paramedic in Ohio. And then you're like, we were talking about this. You get up, another call, right? Another call, another
yep.
call, another shift, another call.
Yep.
5, 10, 15 years goes by. 20, 30 pounds, it gets added on. Stress starts to accumulate, right? So then you decided to make a change or look for a change, right?
Right. So I was actually on vacation in at the beach in South Carolina, and was talking and looking at, just kind of looking around at the beach and the weather, and I said, I don't know that I want to go back to Ohio. So I started looking around at where places were hiring and looking at different options, and I saw that the Medic, which is the EMS agency for Mecklenburg County in North Carolina, was hiring, and I put my online application in, sitting on the beach in South Carolina. Went back to our rental property that we were at, and that next morning had a phone call for an over the phone interview, and then by that afternoon, I was being invited to come to their assessment center, and so like pretty much stopped in Charlotte on the way home from vacation and did an assessment center. And then by the time I got back home to Ohio that next Monday, I had a job offer and was selling the house and moving to North Carolina.
Wow. So you went and you were supervising and doing some other things at that point in Ohio. You went back to basically the front line, paramedic in North Carolina. And then how long were you doing that?
I was in Charlotte just over 5 years at Medic and spent enough time. I got vested in the state retirement system there while my pay scale was nice and high.
Right.
And then
that's the way you try to do it.
Yep. And then I made that transition to full-time fire.
So you finally, after 20 some years, got hired full-time with Lenoir Fire Department.
So I had 2 years at a neighboring department in Lincolnton, just about a half an hour south of here. But that was just kind of like, that was my foot in the door and got going there. And then when Lenoir was hiring, that's when I made that move.
So you've been in Lenoir now, and you had to go through an academy. We'll touch on that a little bit, but just, I think probably about 70 to 80% of the people that are listening right now are probably gonna go, oh yeah, we've either started from the volunteers, started in EMS. Some even went to, the prevention side to try to get hired full time. It's a little different now, right? Some jobs more readily available full time, but your journey is real similar. Like, mine as well. I started volunteer, on call paid, and then got hired finally at 36. I think you got hired full time at 38 with the fire side. Yeah. But along this journey, we were chuckling because there's this, I wouldn't say a progression. There's the life cycle of the paramedic and the firefighter, and it's weight gain. It's, you start to lose your patience with your loved ones. You start to kind of get more of a sassy, negative kind of attitude. You get short with people, so let's talk about that as well. So now people kind of can hopefully our listeners are relating. I know I did. It's like, yeah, you're like 20 years in the fire EMS services. there's usually some weight gain. There's usually like some relationship issues or could be, and right. And some mental health stuff. Kind of take us into that a little bit. What's that personal journey been like through that time?
So a friend of mine years ago explained to me that your mental health and the PTSD, the trauma that we gain working in this kind of a job. He said, we have like this Pandora's box that we have back here in the back of our brain, and we go on a bad call or we deal with whatever we deal with, and we pack it up and we shove it into our Pandora's box, right? And we think that's fine. It's back there. We don't talk about it. We don't look at it. We don't do anything else. And the next call we go on or whatever, we shove it back in there. Problem is that we don't know how big that box is. And the next time we open that lid to put something else in, it's already full. And when we open the lid, it pours out. Right. But we're not always on a call or at work when we open that lid and it pours out. Maybe we're at the grocery store, maybe we're sitting at family dinner, and the things that are pouring out and the emotions that we're having aren't related to what we're seeing or what we're experiencing right now. It's just this overflow from what we've been dealing with for so long and not appropriately handling for so long that now some little thing is setting it off. You think about it, if you have kids or you've been around little kids, when little kids are tired, what the problem is that they're tired, but they don't know that they're tired. So they're gonna start crying because their sucker fell on the ground. But really, it's just because they're tired. They can't, but they don't know how to appropriately express those emotions, right? We do the same thing. We don't know how to appropriately deal with, or we choose not to deal with the stresses of our job and the stresses of the calls we go on and the things we have to put up with and all of these things. So we don't appropriately deal with those things. And then we stuff it all away thinking that we have dealt with it because we don't think about it all the time. So we're fine. And then we end up just like you said, with relationship struggles, with weight gain, with sleeping problems, with all of these different things that are all connected to our mental health that we're not dealing with. And then it takes unfortunately, it usually takes something really drastic happening in our lives to kind of smack us in the face and say, hey, there's an issue we need to deal with, and you need to figure out what's going on, because if you don't figure this out and make a change, it's going to keep getting worse. Yeah. Mental health, just like your physical health, mental health, you don't wake up one day and not have some sort of mental health issue. If you have anxiety, depression, PTSD, any of those things, you don't just wake up one day and they're gone. Just like you don't wake up one day if you have diabetes, you don't wake up one day and no longer have diabetes.
Right.
Without that pain,
you have to manage it. And it comes across so how did you find the traumas and the PTSD? You wrote a great article about, changing your culture. You lost a lot of weight. I love the title of this, by the way, Weight Off My Shoulders and the Rest of Me. And, basically once obese firefighter, now have the confidence needed to continually be useful on the fire ground, be that useful person within your crew. But can you correlate a lot of the kind of the traumas with all of a sudden it comes out as, which I think a lot of us don't understand, is why we reach for that sweet food, or, we eat a lot, or we eat, right? Because there's a correlation there, isn't there?
Oh, for sure. For me, in the process of all of this moving to North Carolina and transitioning out of full-time EMS and into full-time fire, in the midst of all that, I also had a failing marriage at the time, and went through a divorce. And like I said, sometimes it takes a really dramatic, catastrophic event to slap you in the face. And that was my dramatic, catastrophic event. What was that, when I went through my divorce, it was a very, very much an eye-opening experience of, why is this happening? Not why did the marriage fail? Not why are we getting divorced? But what has happened in my life? What have I not addressed? What have I let slide and let go for this long to get to this point where I don't want to be married to me.
Yeah.
And so that I really, it really did have, I had to take kind of a self-assessment and start looking at things of, okay, so, I have a bad day at work. What am I doing with that experience? Am I coming home and grabbing a thing of ice cream or cookie, whatever the case be, or am I appropriately dealing with those things? I have a stressful night at work. Am I stopping at the gas station and grabbing snacks? Because when you eat sugar and you eat sweet things and things that taste good, it stimulates the right receptors in your brain to make you think you're feeling better.
Yeah.
Am I doing those things, or am I, actually figuring out why am I feeling that way and actually getting myself to feel better, stimulating it?
Well, and I think you could relate that to energy too, right? Like we're energy depleted, and I a lot of people probably now are drinking energy drinks, and there's probably sweets on the table, and I get it. I'm not saying don't do those things, but I think what you're saying is really start to dig in a little deeper about what's going on there. Why are you reaching for those things? And
Right.
could you really stop if you really needed to? And I think that went into, so you gained a lot of weight and you said it's getting to a point it's affecting your health. Take us down that journey a little bit. So what happened with the weight gain and how did that all start?
So, as I've been a big guy as long as I can remember. My all of my adult life, most of my childhood, I was the fourth grader buying the husky jeans.
Okay, yeah.
And so it was always I'm just the big guy, kind of like the frog in a pot of boiling water. You add 5 pounds this year, 10 pounds next year, 5 and 10 pounds here and there, and before you know it, if you don't do something about it, before you know it, you've gained 100, 40, 50, in my case, 150 pounds. And that was kind of the thing for me. Was I was at the doctor's office and I got on the scale for something that was, a mundane checkup or whatever. And I got on the scale and I saw the number and said, I've never been this big in my entire life. And I've realized that I had been saying that every year,
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
I'm bigger this year than I was last year, and knowing full well that the previous year that I had said, I'm going to do something about it this year, and so it's kind of just that slow, steady increase of weight, and the heavier you get, the less energy you have.
Yep.
The less energy you have, the heavier you get. The less exercise you do, the easier it is to be sedentary. The more sedentary you are, the easier it is to eat. It's just a vicious cycle.
It's
really
a vicious toilet bowl, as I like to call it, right?
Yeah,
Like it's just,
and you have to break those habits, and unfortunately, we are very much in our line of work. We are very much people that want instant result, right? We show up to a fire, we put water on it, the fire goes out, we go home, right? We don't like things that we have to work on for days or weeks or years at a time. But I didn't get overweight overnight. I didn't go to sleep at 125 pounds and wake up at 3:30. So you have to make those changes that are and recognize that I didn't get this way overnight. I'm not going to get away from this way overnight.
Yeah. How does the mirror play into this? Because I know, when we talk about, there's a lot of guys probably going, well, muscle weighs more than fat. BMI is bullshit, and I've told myself that, but there's a point where you're like, stop drying my pants in the dryer because my pants are shrinking. No, dumbass. Your waist is getting bigger. You're gaining weight. You're
right.
Right? Like, yeah. What was that point for you that was it the doctor's office stepping on that scale?
Yeah. I'd always, I see myself in pictures and things like that, and I always saw myself as big, but until I lost a bunch of weight, until I came and saw what I look like, less 100 pounds, I don't think I ever realized, looking in the mirror, just the size difference that I had. I still, I'm 4 years roughly out of this journey, and I still struggle when I look in the mirror. I still struggle with seeing that person that I was then.
Yeah.
You know, I see all of the things that are left from that person that I was. I see I see the double chin, I see the love handles, I see all of those things. Um, and I struggle now more with seeing what I see in the mirror than I did ever beforehand.
Yeah.
Before, to me, it was always a numbers thing.
Yeah. You always, and I think this is a point to bring up too, because I think like in our field, we see that negative side a lot of times, right? Like
Mhm.
we always see what's wrong. We never see what progress we made
Yeah,
or maybe what impact we made. I
for
think
sure.
even like, we mentioned that diabetic call. That diabetic call for us is just another diabetic call, but for that person experiencing it's a dramatic event, right? Like
For
for
sure.
you losing the weight, you still looking at my chin's not here, my mustache is still a
Yeah,
little too,
right.
but you have a fabulous mustache, by the way. For those who are listening, you better get on the YouTube to see his mustache. It's pretty epic. But right, we look at that lens sometimes. Have you changed, or is that kind of one of the things that you're still trying to work on? Is changing your lens when you see yourself, first saying, "Damn, I've done some great stuff," and then saying, "I'm not there yet." But right, like, are there times where you've been able to do that?
Yeah, there are definitely times when I can see the positive, when I can see the changes for sure. The weight gain was kind of an underlying issue to, like we were talking about before, with mental health. You know, there was some things that I've struggled with that don't always help me to see those positive changes, right?
Okay.
We are always going to be our own worst critic, just like you said. So there are days when I can, I get dressed for church. I put my tie on, I put my shirt, and I look at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, I'm looking pretty good today. And then there's other days when I look at myself on the way out of the bathroom, and I'm like, oh man, I still got a long way to go.
Right.
um, but on those days, on the days where I still have a long way to go, and the days where I feel kind of down on myself because maybe I haven't done the things that I'm supposed to do, or that I need to do to keep myself on track, I do kind of look back at where am I now versus where was I, you know, and I may have gone 100 miles from my original journey, and maybe now I've stepped back and now I'm at 98 miles from where I started, but I'm still 98 miles from where I started.
Yeah. In the right direction.
Right,
Right.
absolutely.
So someone's listening to this, they're like, you know what? I'm at that point. I'm looking in the mirror. I need to make some changes. Give us first, let's go with what's the first thing somebody needs to do to take action?
I think the first thing you need to do to take action is uh, get yourself a support team. Get yourself a support group that are people that are close in your close circle you trust, and that will support your decision no matter what the decision you make is, as long as it's in your best interest, right? Because you can't make that journey by yourself. If you could, you wouldn't be where
Easy.
you're at
You
right now.
wouldn't be where you're
Exactly.
at, right?
Everybody
Yeah.
would, if you could make that journey by yourself, everybody would weigh 150, 160 pounds and have, 1% body fat on them. Everybody
Yeah.
would. So get yourself a support group, whether that's the guys you work with, whether that's your spouse or your parents or whoever, your close friends, whoever that is. Get yourself a support group and ask them to help keep you accountable. Come up with a plan, something that is realistic, something that is not just the New Year's Day, the New Year's
Right.
resolution. Something that's not, I'm going to go to the gym 6 days a week. I'm going to spend 45 minutes on the elliptical. I'm going to do an hour of free weight. That's not sustainable.
No.
You might sustain that for a week or two, but that is not sustainable in reality.
So for you, what did you do personally then? Let's go back to your journey. You're at the doctor's office. You're like, holy cow, this is not where I want to be. What happened then for you?
So for me, the first, I kind of sat down with my family at the time, and I said, guys, I think I'm going to go talk to the bariatric center. I think I'm going to talk to the weight loss center about looking at weight loss surgery, because I have tried and tried and tried to get myself on track and lose this weight. I've been overweight since I was 13 years old. I gotta do something, because if I continue the path I'm going, I'm going to be a statistic. My kid's going to be putting me in the ground before he's an adult. And I'm not going to let that happen. And I don't want to be the reason that my guys at work are dragging me out. I got to make a change. And so I met with the bariatric surgery center, and they put me on a pretty strict pre-op diet to kind of get me started in the right direction. And I went through weight loss surgery, and then made those changes that accompany it, because it's not just a snap your fingers and you've had weight loss surgery, you'll be skinny for the rest of your life. And I'll be honest with you, for a long time, I looked at the weight loss surgery as kind of the easy way out. I know I've heard that so many times.
Right.
But I will tell you from firsthand experience, it is not the easy way out. Because not only do you have to change your eating habits and change your lifestyle and change all of those things, but even if you get into a healthy eating habit, right, without surgery, you get into a healthy eating habit and you do all those right things and you start losing weight and you're getting where you want to go. But on Thanksgiving, you want to go and everybody wants to eat a big old plate, right? We don't get that anymore. No matter how hungry we are, no matter how good that turkey looks or whatever, we still get the same amount of food that we get each time.
Yeah.
We can't. It's impossible to overeat, right?
Yeah, right. You make yourself sick.
It's not impossible. It just makes you sick as a dog. And so it's not the easy way out, because you go through it's major surgery. So you go through surgery, you change your entire lifestyle habits have to change. You change your eating habits. You change your outlook on life, because now you have kind of you run the risk of developing that body dysmorphia that I was talking about before, where you look in the mirror and the person you're seeing in the mirror is not the person that's actually there, but this person that was 100 pounds ago. And there's just so many aspects of weight loss surgery that are not the easy way.
The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision we make as a company is about you, our customer. We wouldn't be where we are today without you, and we don't take that lightly. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit us at thefirestore.com for everything but the truck, and shop our family of brands, including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more. Now let's get back to the show.
Well, and they're not necessarily related just to the weight. You have to dig deep to okay, yeah, you can have the surgery, but you got to figure out, like, and I want to address that next, is why? Why did you get to that point, right? Because you gotta, and it goes back to you saying, you got to look in the freaking mirror, folks. You really do. So what did you learn on that side? And did they give you some counseling with it? Or is that when you started to say, hey, there's some other things going on here I need to address?
Yeah, I think it was kind of a combination of those things. I had to meet with a dietitian. We discussed eating habits, but not just the eat your protein and your salads, not your ice cream and your cookies, but not just that, but also when you take a snack, if you have a snack, what are you eating? I tell them, okay, why do you think you're going for those things? Kind of digging into that mental health aspect of why am I here? Mm-hmm. Along with that is when I started really realizing that, okay, maybe I am having some burnout issues or things of that nature at work, on the ambulance, but is that really what's causing me to feel unhappy? Is my job the reason that I'm feeling unhappy, or am I unhappy for a multitude of other reasons, and it's just coming out at my job?
Yeah.
And really had to kind of dig into that. And I went and saw a counselor about some things that I knew I needed to talk to somebody about, but I hadn't done it yet, because we're prideful people and we don't like to admit when we need help figuring something out. And there's things that we carry with us from childhood through teenage years, through young adult life, that you don't necessarily think about every day as, oh, I do this because when I was 10 years old, I got yelled at for not doing this, right? But
Yeah.
when you develop a habit in childhood, it becomes a habit that you're going to continue to do your whole life, unless you realize, okay, this is a habit and this is why I have this habit. And I need to address why I think this about why I'm eating, and change the way I think about what's going on, not just change what I eat.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're digging into, all right, we're digging more into the why, and you made a great point about we're prideful. My good friend Jim Bernecka in his book Overcoming Tuesday just said, if you sprain your ankle, not to make this too personal because you just did sprain your ankle, by the way. Sorry for those listening. Didn't know Philip just kind of sprained his ankle a little bit. Right, when you have an ankle injury, you're going to go to the doctor. You're going to get an X-ray. You're going to look at it right away. You're going to try to get it fixed. But we don't do the same thing about our mind. We go through a traumatic call and we're just like, no, I'm fine, man. I'm like, no, you just sprained your ankle, dude. Your brain is swollen. Your brain is now injured. You need to go figure out how to fix that. I mean, would you kind of relate it to that?
Yeah, so I would absolutely say that's kind of a good, really good analogy. And I did. I went through the EAP program at my work to get set up with a counselor. And once I kind of got my foot in the door there, once I realized, oh, this is actually kind of beneficial to me, that I went and now I have a counselor that I see just as needed, and kind of continued that on after the EAP stuff was finished up. But EAP was fantastic in the idea that you call and you tell them that, hey, I need to talk to somebody. And within a day, I had an appointment set up with somebody to talk to. The hardest part about that was making that first call.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest part about that was admitting and acknowledging out loud to someone else that I needed to talk to someone, right? I knew that I needed to talk to someone. I may have even told a friend that I need to talk to someone about what's going on in my life, but to call someone that I don't know, that's like kind of a professional, and say, hey, I need you to put me in touch with somebody to talk to because I'm not doing okay. That was the hardest thing, because you have to acknowledge to someone else that you're not okay.
Yeah, right. Hey, this goes back to the mirror.
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
The hardest thing, and I went through a divorce really early on, and I think we all have a story. But one of the best things I heard from one of my counselors was, in my case, so like so-and-so is cheating on me, they're doing this, they're doing that. And she looked at me and I thought she was the worst counselor. She just said, so what? What are you going to do? You can't control them. Yep. She's like, what are you doing for yourself? Like, what are you going to do? Like, and I thought, well, you got to tell her these things, and it was just that slap in the face that said, there is a mirror in front of you. You could create what you want in that mirror, but it's all on you, and that's a very sometimes overwhelming thought, right? Like you said, getting to the point where you admit, I need someone to help me. We're the people that help everybody else.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you think that is another reason why it took you so long? Because you're the guy who's always helping everybody else. I don't need it.
Absolutely. I know that's what part of the reason that it took so long for me to make changes and get the help I needed, was because I'm a fixer. And
y'all are, yeah.
Right. And if I'm fixing your problem, I don't have to acknowledge my problem. And if I'm fixing 15 people's problem a night, I definitely don't have to worry about my problems. And so you go to work and you run calls and you fix everyone else's problem, and then you go home and you go to sleep and you sleep for a few hours and you get up and you go back to work and you fix other people's problems, and then you don't have to worry about it. But just like I was saying before, is that eventually those problems are going to start pouring out, and it's not necessarily going to be over the thing that you're upset about. Suddenly you're furious because because the president is on the TV instead of Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah, or nobody brought ice cream to the
Yeah,
station. How does a
right.
rookie
Yeah.
not bring me
Yep.
sweets to the station?
Yep.
They're worthless already, right?
Yep.
Like I've seen that. But so you looked in the mirror. You made some transformational changes. You took control of your health. You took control of your mental health. So let's talk about now. You're almost 40. You're 38 years old. You get hired full time finally. You kind of have figured out health and so let's go. You're now the old guy. Let's go to that part now, because this has got a great ending. Like the story's still being written, but I think so far, if people are listening to this, look, you can make positive changes. You just have to be really honest with yourself, and when you do that,
For sure.
great things happen. But it still takes work. So now you're the old guy going through this academy. Take us through this part now.
It was an experience, man. You don't realize, at least I didn't realize just how different your body is when you're 20 years older than the first time. When I went through fire school in Ohio, I was 17, 18 years old. I was young. I had no quit at all in me. I was not. You would have to physically tell, hey, go sit down and rest. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. And really to kind of connect the two topics, I was that way because I knew I was overweight. I knew that I was not the fittest and strongest guy, but I was not going to let the fittest and strongest guy work while I sat because I was overweight.
Yep.
So
going through
that,
your first time, this is your
yeah,
mindset.
right.
And
So
you're 18, 19 years old. Yeah.
Yep. So those two things really did connect in that way. But now, boy, going back through with people that are 18, 19 years old, and in some cases, I'm old enough to literally be their parent.
Yeah.
It was just so much hard work, and seeing the generational differences from what I don't necessarily think of myself as being a old guy, but seeing the generational gap between mid to late 30s and teenage to 20 years old. And that is not to say anything about if you're 18, 19 years old. That's not saying like these young kids, these young whippersnappers, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that we as a older generation need to understand that we are not on the same playing field as these kids that are just coming into the job, just coming on into rookie school. And so I had to really learn to kind of adjust how I heard or how I listened, how I communicated, just being in a class setting with them, understanding and being able to figure out what are these kids talking about. I have no idea. It was a difficult thing to sit there and look and realize that, like, all right, I'm a student today, right? I'm here sitting in this classroom to learn and to pass a test and to get through my fire classes, but I am closer to age and experience and life experience and all those things with the instructor than I am with the students.
Yep.
But you can't just, I can't just go and hang out with the instructor and just be like, hey, and just shoot the breeze with him. So it was a really a learning experience of how to identify and associate with the younger generation.
Yeah. And physically too, like you had to learn, right? Like, hey, there's some things I'll let them go their second time, right? Like right?
Yeah,
like
right.
that's another eye-opening thing, because you're not as young as you used to be. Recovery was probably a lot harder, correct?
Oh yeah, for sure. Muscles that hurt the next day that I didn't know I had. When we were going through our search and rescue classes and our RIT classes, man, I went home that night and I just sat on the couch and I couldn't move. My legs, my knees, my lower back, all of those things were just, and I remember going through those classes 20 years ago, and that night going out to I think we went like bowling or something like that, like where I was up and moving around the rest of the night, and I was like, hey, no big deal, whatever, like, and back at class the next morning. But man, it really is. It takes it out of you a lot more. I don't think any of us want to acknowledge the fact that we're getting older, but sometimes your body reminds you.
Yeah, we're just getting more knowledgeable. We
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
ourselves a little bit
yeah.
better. We understand maybe our limits a little bit better. And I don't want to say that word too loudly, but right, you have to start to understand that. Was it more rewarding the second time?
It absolutely was, um, because the like you were saying about the physical aspect of it, that was more rewarding. The educational side of it, I learned. Yeah, yeah. There was some new terminology, some new like flow paths and things like
Yep.
that we didn't talk about 20 years ago. That stuff was cool to learn about, but the basic principles of being a firefighter really didn't change in that time. But the physical aspect of it, of learning that, okay, yeah, I'm pushing 40 years old, but I can still hang. I can still do it. That really was rewarding to me. It was encouraging to me to tell me that I'm moving in the right direction, just like we were talking about before. I may not be where I want to be, but I'm leaps and bounds ahead of where I was.
Hmm. And you'd written about in one of your other articles that I really love. You talked about this journey, this experience, but you said something about a rookie mindset and keeping that, right? Like, how
Mhm.
describe that for me?
Yeah, so I always I kind of always think of myself as being the rookie, because the day we stop learning in this job is the day we need to think about leaving this job. And sometimes learning or being the rookie, what that means is acknowledging I don't know everything, and acknowledging that maybe the 18-year-old kid that just came out of fire school knows something that I don't, and I can be a rookie to him for a minute and let him tell me what he knows, uh, and I can learn from it, because
Mhm.
we are all one call away from our career being over. And so the more we can do to prepare ourselves for that, the more we can sit back and think of ourselves as the student. I think I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day. I heard something about the student mindset,
Yeah.
and having this idea that we are never going to be done learning about this job. When you start loving your recliner more than you love the craft,
Yeah.
that's where problems develop. When you start loving
Your
uh,
side job.
your side job more than loving the work that we do at the fire department, that's where problems come into play. You will never see, I don't think you will never see a rookie firefighter come into the fire station, look around and be like, seen it, and go to the day room. Like, remember those first times you walked into a fire station, the smell of the gear, and that feeling that you got, that like, I am part of the best job in the world. I get to do this job. You're kidding me, right?
Right.
Um, and then you flash forward 20 years and you're like, I have to do this job. Don't lose that passion and that desire you had to be the best firefighter you could possibly be when you were a rookie, just because you've been doing it a little while.
Yeah. No, amen, buddy. And that's kind of what we're all about here. Like, my whole thing is how, I have that same idea. Like, how can I learn from this? And I think, the cool part about having you on is, right. You wrote in your first article. I believe you just sent to Janelle and said, hey, here's just something that I've experienced. And I hope other people can learn from, and maybe someone else is going through this. And that, I think, is the essence of how we grow as a fire service. Yeah, it's great because Chief Lieb is unbelievable from the standpoint of knowledge and motivation. Dina Ali is just an unbelievable story. All these very smart chiefs, but when you listen and talk to them, they learn from the people that they are serving. They learn from other people. I thought one of the most humbling things that I heard was Chief Lieb is calling smaller departments all over the country, talking to them about a call that they had, right?
Mm.
Like, don't be above learning, never be above the student level, right? And I think, that's the essence of what we're talking about, and that's really what's driven you this far. Remember, now we started this with your very first diabetic call and that feeling, and I think what you're saying is bottle that up, take it with you every single time you step on the rig. Did you have that same idea when now you're a full-time firefighter? Do you remember that first call when you're on the fire truck?
I do. Absolutely, I do. Actually, on my phone, I have somewhere back in my pictures, I have a picture of our shift assignment, like the dry erase board that was my very first day as a full-time firefighter, that showed, my last name as riding in the firefighter seat. And I took it because I was thinking to myself, this picture is 20 years in the making.
Yeah.
I have waited for this day for 20 years in the making. And I know that in 5, 10, 15 years from now, when I am feeling bummed and something didn't go the way I wanted it to, or whatever it is, that I need to be able to pull this picture back up and look at it and say, you wanted to be here, you wanted this job. And so I do, I remember so many of the calls that I've been on since then. I definitely remember the first structure fire I ran as a full-time firefighter, getting that call. I remember all of these different little things, but the thing I think that changed for me in moving to full-time fire was getting to experience that closeness and that family connection of that 24-hour shift with the guys that you spend a third of your life with at this point. And realizing that good, bad, or indifferent, they're your family. That you just like your regular family, you're going to have days where you don't like them at all, and you're going to have days when you can't live without them. But you can't put a price tag or a paycheck sign in front of the connections that you have the ability to make working in a fire department.
Yeah. Amen, buddy. Yeah. Very well said. Well, thanks for sharing your story. And I'm hoping right now there's people that are, taking some notes and saying, you know what, I can do this. I can be the next, Philip Clark. Because I love these stories where you've worked, for 20 years to get to the point where you are, and you haven't stopped. And, and hopefully this will really, really motivate others to do the same. But you're not done yet, though. I got a couple more questions. We have hot seat questions for you. So I'm going to start with our first hot seat question. It's, what's the biggest challenge facing the fire service today?
That's such a hard question. I think it is the generational gap that we are allowing to become bigger. I think it's the idea that we, as your senior firefighters, your officers, we are putting such a title on the younger generation of firefighter, of they're the millennials, the Gen Alphas, the iPhone generation. We're not stepping up to lead them the way that we need to. And at the same time, they don't know how to be led by us. So there's this generational gap where we're just not always connecting the way that we could to make the fire service better as a whole, because we don't quite know how to mesh our lifestyles together to gain something better than what we already have.
Yeah. Well, our first reaction is they need to respond to us. And I think what you're saying is we also need to change to connect with them, because
absolutely. Yep.
Because if I was 18 again, I remember when I was 18, I didn't listen to anybody. My dad, I think, said, "Hey, do you want to move out of the house now while you know everything?" I think he was ready to kick my butt out, right? Like,
for sure.
And we have to remember that. I think it's very well said, that we have to meet them halfway and look in the mirror again and figure out ways to connect, right?
I was thinking about this the other day, that if you have a kid, like a young kid that doesn't know how to brush their teeth, right? They're learning how to brush their teeth. You wouldn't ridicule them or make fun of them or talk about them with your buddies behind their back. He didn't know how to brush his teeth, right? You'd show them how to brush their teeth. But when a new firefighter, a young 18-year-old comes in and doesn't know how to check the oil on the rig, doesn't know how to check the fluids or check the gas level on a chainsaw, what do we do? How did this kid make it out of high school without knowing how to, all these things? Well, it's a different world that they came up in. Cars now, most cars don't have transmission fluid dipsticks. Power steering fluid dipstick. I just saw a commercial the other day for a pickup truck that they're making now with it's a closed system oil, like engine oil. I mean, you change the engine oil, but you can't check it with a dipstick. The computer
it's just automatically, it's sealed.
The computer on it tells you when it needs change, right?
Right.
So that's the technology that they've grown up with. So is it any wonder they don't know how to change or check fluids on a big diesel engine that they've never seen before?
Right. But conversely, though, that the light is going to go on in the engine, and you and I aren't going to know what the hell the light is. They will know what the light means.
Absolutely, yeah. And oil life 0%. What does that even mean?
How do I read my oil life percentage? Like, just flip this tab twice, and it tells you exactly what's going on with your vehicle. You're like,
exactly.
I've never seen it. I think it's a great example. So let's stay with challenges. Right now, let's go more to a personal level. What's the biggest challenge you've had to overcome recently?
I think just maintaining my journey, maintaining my mental health journey, my weight loss journey, all of those things. You get to, it's really easy to get sedentary, get stationary in anything you're doing. You get to a place where you start to be a little bit happy with how things are going, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm good here. And you can real easy start to backslide on a lot of different things, whether it be not working out the way you should, or not eating the way you should, or not spending the time learning streets, if you're trying to move up the driver, learning streets and learning things like that, because you're happy where you're at, and you say, oh, I'll work on those things tomorrow. Today, I'm gonna have a relaxed day. So that's I think it's always going to be a challenge for all of us to maintain the same level. You have to be moving forward, right? You're either growing or you're shrinking. There's no third direction.
And the older you get, the faster you go back. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, wait a minute, gravity's heavier? What is going on here, right? All right, final question, buddy. Thanks so much for sharing, and this has just been fun for me. I hope, and I know a lot of our listeners are getting a lot from this, but final question kind of brings everything back full scale. How are you getting better?
I am getting better every day, because I just graduated with 2 associate's degrees.
Hey, congratulations!
Right?
Nice.
It only took me 20 years to get a degree, but we're working on it. And so, yeah, that's right. They call them doctors. I'm getting better every day by making sure that I am more well-informed and more well-educated and more passion-driven today than I was yesterday. I want to know more about being a firefighter today than I did yesterday, but not as much as I'll know tomorrow. So I spend time reading articles, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, anything I can do to get me in the job a little bit more, to have another slide in my PowerPoint to draw from is going to make me a better firefighter every day. Very well said. And again, thanks for sharing your journey. And can people reach out to you? Is that all right? Absolutely. Sounds good. And we'll actually, they can reach out to the show as well to get your email. Absolutely. Email the show at bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. And for those that are just listening to us, you can head over to firerescue1.com or to YouTube. We have a YouTube channel where you can see Firefighter Clark's epic stash, and also, you can see the sincerity in his eyes and the passion that he has to continually improve and share his story. If you are watching or listening to us, really appreciate it if you rate, review the show, and then share that with someone else. And reiterating what
what Firefighter Clark was talking about is try to always remember and bottle up that first call feeling, because that can motivate you to constantly try to improve yourself, learn something every single day. If you're caught in a rut, don't be afraid to look in the mirror and really dig deep about what's really going on around you. That's the essence to change. Put people around you that will support any changes and positive changes, and really just every single day focus on learning something, doing something, and sharing something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.